Hi, Kenny here, and today I want to talk about the cost of motorcycling on the Royal Enfield Bullet 350. I've had this motorcycle for about a year, and after kitting it out and putting about 10,000 kilometers on it, I want to give you kind of a feel for how much it costs to ride a motorcycle. And I guess I'm kind of talking about this more specifically for the Royal Enfield Bullet 350, which is really more of a commuting bike. It's not a particularly fast bike. It's only got 20 horsepower. I find it suits my needs for just kind of putting around and commuting, and it's also fairly economical. So what is the Royal Enfield Bullet 350? I kind of just want to say it's like an everyman motorcycle. It's very easy to maintain. It's cost effective. And I kind of want to lay it out and just give you kind of a bit of a feel for what's involved and what the costs are on running the motorcycle and the associated costs outside of that. So first off, the motorcycle itself, I pay for $8,600 out the door. That includes all the licensing, the tax, and the motorcycle itself. I believe the sticker price for the motorcycle that I bought was $5,900 Canadian. So I'm here in Canada. So that is the amount of money I brought with me to my dealer and handed over when I got my motorcycle. I should probably talk about what leading up to this. Licensing for my course was about $500, and that cleared me for my M2. So by the time I got my motorcycles, I was ready to ride. You've also got the cost of insuring a motorcycle. So I think this is the one that probably catches most people off guard, how much a motorcycle could cost to reinsure and run. So I want to be transparent about the whole process here. My cost as a middle-aged man, living in not like a condensed, I don't live in Toronto, I live just outside. My motorcycling insurance from this one bike is $1,300 a year. So $1,300 is pretty reasonable. I've seen lower prices, even as low as like $1,000, $900. And this is someone with an M2. I don't have my full M motorcycle license yet. So that is the cost of insuring my motorcycle year per year. Another thing I want to talk about is fuel economy. So the video we're watching here is myself riding from Guelph to Blythe, Ontario. It's about 120 kilometers, one way there, one way back. So roughly about 250 kilometers. And on the way back, I did hit Trip F on the motorcycle, and Trip F on the Royal Enfield Classic 350 or the Bullet motorcycles is basically the screen turning on and telling you that the fuel gauge is on reserve. You gotta like look for gas station now. So I figure I probably had about another 30 kilometers. I'm playing pretty safe here. Another 30 kilometers to go before I run out of fuel. So all said and done, I think the trip, and this was a rather extensive ride where I was out on roads that had a maximum of 90 kilometers an hour. So, speeds up to 100 were fairly common on these roads, and I just kept with the flow of traffic. So it was not the most fuel efficient ride. I did kind of sat kind of in the top end of the rev and the gears. So I figured my motorcycle probably would have been able to do 300 kilometers on a single tank at these rates. The fuel economy would have been a little bit better had I just been going like 80 kilometers. So with that said, like it's about a 300 kilometer range with this trip I particularly did. And just for example, I like to do this thing where I leave the house with a full fuel tank. I ride home, and I was on Trip F. I was nearly empty, so I filled up just before I got to my house in the same neighborhood where I live. And my fuel costs in this economy, with the fuel being pretty ridiculous, it turned out to be around $13.50 for me to replenish my tank. So that was a 300 kilometer trip I did. Cost me $13.50 $13.50. So that's the cost of riding this motorcycle fuel-wise. If you're going to talk about maintenance and repair, I'll just kind of focus on like what potentially the labor costs are. So you do need a oil filter and oil change roughly about every 5,000 kilometers on this bike. They're obviously like the first 1,000 kilometer that you got to be aware of what the situation is depending on the bike. But for oil changes, roughly on the Royal Enfield Bullet 350, it's 5,000 to 10,000 kilometers, and it usually costs about $60 in costs. So that includes your oil that you're replacing and your oil filter. So $60 if you have an hour of time, you can change your own motorcycle oil. And if you are really coming into motorcycling with this perspective of using it as a commuter, or you just want a general purpose commuter, you're going to be putting a lot of miles and wear and tear on your bike, then it does help to kind of do your own maintenance. Another thing that can be costly on the motorcycle is your valve clearance checks. And valve clearance usually takes about a couple hours of a mechanic's time. And I think the going rate where my dealer is at is about $150 an hour. So it could cost potentially up to anywhere from $300 to $500 to do your valve checks. Takes you about this would take you an hour and a half if you do it yourself, but if you do take it to a dealer, be prepared to pay about $300 to $500 every 10,000 kilometers for your valve checks. I have not done the wheel changes, wheel replacements, or anything of that sort, so I can't really comment on that. But the rest of that is really just gear. So the rest of what I want to include here is remaining. What's left out is all the gear that I have. So, gear is very personal, so you can decide what you like to do with that. But generally, for a helmet, it might run you anywhere between $200 and $500. I don't really, again, it's your safety, it's your call, but I've got myself a couple of sets of helmets, a couple of jackets, multiple pairs of gloves, and a couple pairs of boots, mostly just because I live in Canada and the weather can be rather cold, or it can be rather warm, so I just have 2 sets for those occasions. The one thing I do want to recommend, and for you to be aware of, is I found there to be a huge difference between leather jacket and a nylon material synthetic jacket. I tend to feel the wind a lot less in a leather jacket. I don't know if it has to do with the stiffness of leather versus the looseness of textile. So I do notice they feel different when you ride. I mean, that doesn't impact safety and all those things, but just one thing I've noticed with gear as far as leather versus synthetic materials. But yeah, that's the cost of riding a motorcycle. If you have any questions, please do let me know, but I hope there's some transparency being put out there on what it actually costs on a day-to-day basis for operating a motorcycle. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.